So my name is Kasii Oakley, and I live in Vermont. And my husband and I moved here about 2 years ago. So right when the pandemic started, we had plans before that. So we moved up here. We have five little ones, and right now they are nine. I have a 9-year-old girl, almost 8-year-old boy, 6.5-year-old girl, and then 4-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, and they'll be 5 in a couple weeks. So it's a huge milestone.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, we live up here on a ridge, and we homeschool or unschool and take care of animals and just live life.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I so kind of wanted to like do that. Like when my girls were little and when Maggie was little, I had aspirations to sort of like homeschool and things like that. But then I was like, oh gosh, I don't think I can spend like that many hours with my kids. Like I need a break, actually.
No,
It's just
totally. That's what I tell people considering homeschooling. I'm like, the first year is really getting used to being around your kids the whole time because it's
yeah.
intense. Yeah,
You're like, okay, we are really in it together all the
yeah,
time.
all
That's
the
cool.
time. Yeah,
Awesome. So Casey and I worked together in mindful parenting, did mindful mama transformation coaching group during the pandemic, right? Like wasn't
yeah,
that like right at the beginning of the pandemic? That was
yeah,
so that was so intense. We were all like,
yeah,
what's going on?
yeah.
And so I know you fairly well. But so I'm going to ask you kind of, I mean, it's kind of a lot to ask kind of since then, but what are your wins?
Yeah. So, Hunter, I just first want to say thank you for all that you're doing and for the work that you've put into helping families, and because it's really meaningful work and it's just really necessary. You know, I think some of the wins in the last couple of years that I have really, uh, you know, I guess I'm able to put into words are the relationship that I have with my children, and that I feel very connected to them.
Hmm.
That's, I think, has always been the goal, but I think I feel such a sense of groundedness. Some of that's time, but a lot of that is the tools that I've been given and the accountability that I had through meeting with you and other mamas, to
Mm.
kind of put those tools into practice. So, seeing like the fruit of the hard work, and just continually connecting with my kiddos in really precious ways. So that's a huge win. And I think also taking care of myself, which is also, we'll get to the challenges, also a huge challenge still, but like the just understanding how important it is for me to prioritize my mental health. Um, that has been a really huge learning for me, especially as a nurturer, somebody who's always giving themselves. Like that's just my wiring, I guess. But then, if I'm not putting myself first, then I'm just totally spent, and then I'm mad at everybody. So a win has really been just me learning how to do that, and a lot of what we processed. And your coaching groups and things like that just inspired me and gave me handles for that. So it's a huge win for the whole family.
And that wasn't that like from what I remember, that wasn't what you were modeled, right? Like your own family of origin was it was fairly I don't know, I don't know if I remember correctly. Maybe I'll let you describe it.
That's okay. Yeah. I mean, everyone in that I know is a servant.
Mm,
And for the best and the worst. And so,
mm.
it's just modeled to continue to give. You say yes, you do all the things, you take care of everybody. But little like intention to like nurture your own needs. That was almost selfish, to take care of yourself, and not explicitly stated, but it just wasn't done. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone is a servant. That's really interesting to think about. I can think of a few people in my life who are living by that. But yeah, you don't want to be. I mean, to have that like continue, you end up like angry and resentful, and that's no good. That's not where we want to go with this at all.
Yes.
So, you guys uproot everything. You move to Vermont. You've got 5 kids. You're homeschooling twins who are at the time like 3 or 2.5, 6-year-old and 8-year-old, 9-year-old now. So I can imagine there are plenty of them, but what are some of the challenges that are arising for you?
Yeah. So the longer days mean that children are awake for longer. Summer always in the spring and summer propose a unique challenge for me. In that there's so much that I want to do. I'm super active. I'm a gardener. We have animals. I milk my goat in the mornings where, we've got this homestead wannabe, we're new. So, everything's an experiment at this point. Um, and yet, and then I have all the needs of my children, and wonderful things. Like I love to bake. I love, I cook every meal. We don't eat out a ton. We don't, I mean, we go to the library and we have our little play dates and events and hike and all our things, but we're home. And so you pile that on with keeping a clean house. You've got all your, every space in our home is basically, children running through it, leaving stuff, and you do your best to have everyone pick up. You have your tidy times, you have, the chores that the whole family participates in. But it just kind of like all adds up each day, and then there's the idea of, oh, I want to take time for myself. I love to write, I read, I play the piano, I love painting, and these fill my cup. And so my challenge is always, how do I set up my day and that I am not just completely spent by 6 p.m. where I still have dinner and baths and, or all the things. And I have a really supportive and helpful partner. And I couldn't do any of this without him. I mean, thankfully he works from home and we're able to kind of juggle things, but it's a challenge to do it all and still be happy and loving and model, all the right ways to talk to everybody and all the concerns and all the things. And so my husband, has asked, well, what is it that you can let go of in this season? Or what do you say no to? Maybe it's time in the kitchen. Let's, so he'll grill 4 nights a week or so. That's really changed things for us. But still I want to do it all. I don't want to let anything go, and I want to do it all with excellence. And then I'm just spent, and I have nothing for anybody. And so I'm still there. That's still the challenge of taking care of myself, and doing anything really well. And so I think that's where I'm at right this minute. So
That's a lot of things you want to do,
yeah.
Kasii. I mean, the goat, the garden, baking, 5 kids that are homeschooled. This is not I would be overwhelmed with the goat, a garden, and baking if they were all at school every day. You're doing the goat, the garden, the baking, and wanting to paint and write and everything when they're home all day. I mean, you're right. You really, really want to do everything.
I do.
Wow, it's amazing. Okay, so, I mean, I hear that, and you have an incredible zest for life is kind of what's kind of coming through here for me, and that you want to do all these things. What does it give you to be able to when you can get it together to do all the things? What does it give you?
I for such a long season, when you have so many little ones, and you're constantly meeting their needs. I mean, there's diapers and there's all sorts of things. Nobody can do anything for themselves for a really long time.
Mhm.
And so now I'm getting glimpses of we're almost 5. My 9-year-old is so capable. They need supervision and boundaries and those kind of things, but they're doing a lot for themselves. They go and play for an hour and it's wonderful. And so I'm seeing these pockets in these windows, and I almost get anxiety when there's free time for me, because I'm there's so much I want to get done. But as I'm even stating this, I think what the challenge is for me, Hunter, is that, I have a hard time switching from my doing mode to being. And so, I've noticed that when I'm in my doing mode, if I'm working in the garden, I've got stuff, it's hard for me to have little ones around. It's hard for me to keep the conversation going, maybe with my 9-year-old, but maybe not so much with my 5-year-old, and And I
Mhm.
find that in those moments, it's really hard for me to be present with them. It's really hard for me to like connect or to like, because I'm like, hey, I need this hour to like knock this out, kind of thing. And actually want to. I don't want anyone to talk to me, um,
Yeah, yeah.
and so the challenge is really like my mama heart wanting to be available, wanting to like, oh, let me see you in this moment, oh, wow, you found that little snail. What's his name? Or whatever they're excited about. And just kind of like having boundaries, but also being present. It's kind of it's challenging to figure out when it's time for me to set up a boundary. I've had enough connection and I'm connected out. And then like, oh, I've been really working and not available and now I need to connect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. If I could like kind of wave a magic wand and give you the ideal amount of like connection with your kiddos versus like time to like garden and paint and feed goats, what each day, like what would that ideal ratio sort of look like? What would the ideal number of hours look like if we could just magically make it so?
That's a great question. You know what I view that in terms of uh, the countenance, my children's countenance. And what I say, what the vision that I get is like when I'm not available, I see it on their countenance. And so
You mean on the way they like presenting, like their faces, their demeanor,
yes,
that kind of thing?
yes,
Yeah,
I
okay.
feel like it's a letdown if I'm not. And that's hard for me. And so ideally it
Mhm.
would be all the time. I'm always available for you, like I'm not sure
Okay,
what the
okay.
ratio. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. But the question is like, let's imagine you could be there for your kids perfectly and they would be perfectly happy all the time. And you could, we're just making an imaginary world.
Imaginary. Okay.
In that imaginary world where they're perfectly happy with the amount of connection they have from you, and you're perfectly happy with the amount of time you have to do your own thing. How much time is that?
Oh gosh, Hunter, I don't know. I would say at least like half the day. I don't know. I'd go
Half the
50-50.
day for
Yeah.
50-50. Okay, yeah,
50
50-50.
connection and the other half like, doing a thing or kind of switching from one
Yeah.
thing to the other, like, okay,
Yeah.
let's connect. Okay, now you go play and it's my turn to do this, or does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that makes sense. Um, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because then you're perfectly ready for the one thing, for the kids because you've had a lot of like rest and recoup time.
Right.
Okay. All right. So I'm hearing that you are wanting to do everything. You do a lot. You like doing, but you have a hard time switching from doing to like being with your kids. And that's a huge value for you is to be there and be present for your kids. And it's something you've worked at and practiced and you have tools for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and um, and yet this sort of switch thing. So your husband has asked you kind of a wise question, I think. What can you say no to in this season? Because I'm wondering if you had less on your plate of doing, and if you could, like then that switching, there's not as much switching cost, right? You're not as driven to like use the hours, get the hours, right? To
Yeah.
if because you're running out of time to do this in order to get that done to then feed the goats. I keep saying feed the goats, but I'm sure you know other things besides feeding the goats, right? Um, so you know, I'm wondering, like, if you had to prioritize everything, right? Everything you do in a day, like, what would be the top priority? And then we could kind of go downward just in this season, right?
Yeah.
So just for right now, because seasons will change. Like when your 4-year-olds are both like 10, you're going to have a whole different amount of time. It's going to change a lot. This is just the season is changing. So anyway,
Yeah.
for just this season,
Yeah.
how would you prioritize what's the most important things for you?
Yeah. I think high on the list would be basic needs of the family. Like
Hmm.
everybody's getting food. we have a, we
Yeah.
kind of have a schedule. You kind of have to with so many kids. So they know like breakfast is at this time, snack at this time, lunch at this time. So, having food available, being there, is definitely a priority. What probably isn't a priority is needing to make the snacks. I like make my own power balls or granola stuff, or, like I
Oh,
like to whip things together really fast. But then there's all this cleanup after that. And
yeah.
so maybe just letting go, like this isn't a season but like my 6-year-old is the baker and she loves it. And that's kind of our connecting thing and many times through the week. And so it's like, man, there's this guilt I feel to let go of doing baking with her because it's such a gift to her, um,
Mm-hmm.
and but even more than that, like just the amount of time I spend in the kitchen probably could go down, whereas I could, and this is my husband's encouragement as well. He's like, get him an apple, get a bag of chips out. Who cares? And I'm like, oh, it's not organic. And like it's hard for me. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, yes, we can streamline some of this stuff. So it's not as, but then I kind of get in that loop where I'm like, oh, let's do pancakes. Like I want it for me too. Um,
Okay, but on a general basis, you have a value of like homemade, organic, natural
yeah,
food,
yeah,
which is great. That's
yeah,
nice, but also it can be something that we also feel pressure about. It can be
totally.
part of our identity,
Yeah,
right? It can be
yeah,
part of like, I am this kind of person. I am not
sure.
that Cheetos bag kind of person,
Yeah,
right? And
totally.
I'm
Oh,
wondering
I
if,
totally agree.
part of that is what's going on also for you as you're like feeling this pressure to kind of make everything.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I would say you are totally right in that this is kind of like the framework that I have toward eating is like, oh no, we're gonna choose this and not that, kind of thing. And maybe almost too strict, although I don't limit my kids in that way. I just don't buy other things, right? Like I buy all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
things to put it together so that we have stuff. But
yeah.
maybe in this season, I just buy packaged stuff. Be
It's
call it a day.
okay to do that,
I
I
know.
mean, it's like if
I
I
know.
were, I'm gonna be buying snacks for my kids. In our community, we have like kind of like a very loose summer camp that our
Yeah.
kids go to. We all contribute stuff, and I buy the snacks because one year I discovered that someone else was buying the snacks and they were brought everybody Mountain Dews and Klondike bars, and I was like,
Perfect.
oh my god, what are you giving my children?
Right.
Holy crap.
Sugar shots for everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sugar shots for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I was
Yeah.
like, I volunteer to get snacks. And then we
Yeah.
have like
Yeah.
hummus, little hummus containers and carrots and
Totally.
things like that.
Yeah.
But you'd be
Yeah.
amazed at what you can get that's convenient food
Yeah.
that's not like uh, uh,
And we
Klondike
are
bar
gluten
and Mountain
free and
Dew.
we're dairy, we try to be
Oh,
dairy
yeah, yeah.
free and all the things. We have some
Hmm.
allergies and stuff. So, you're
Oh,
always
yeah,
like
yeah,
having
yeah,
to
yeah.
monitor that kind of stuff too. But
Yeah.
no, I feel you. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah,
Because there's a trade-off you have to make between like,
yeah,
okay, this is my identity, but if I want to be able to enjoy my life,
yeah,
if my priority is one of my priorities is being able to be present for my kids when they're in this still in this little phase of 4, almost 5, 6, even 9, if that is important to me, I can't be present for this phase if I'm over, all overdone,
mm,
overdoing everything. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, maybe a concession can be made there, but maybe not with the baking where you bake with your daughter once or
sure,
twice a week, right? Like,
yeah.
but maybe it doesn't have to be all the time. Okay,
A
so you're
daily thing.
identifying some places. I mean, would it even be possible? And I'm thinking about this idea of like the priorities. Obviously, food is priority, and if food would be a priority even like every day, but even if you had, I'm wondering if, every spiritual tradition has a day of rest. And so I want to kind of circle back to that for you, right? A day of like being and not doing, right?
Yeah, that's so
um
good.
so
Thank you for that
um
reminder.
so like a Sabbath day, a day of rest can include, if when you're thinking about food, things like paper plates. Like,
Yeah.
I know you recycle everything and all that, but like you could buy the recycled paper plates and you can put them
Compostable.
in your compost pile.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
like yeah, like you could try that. Like once a week we do that, and then
Yeah.
if you get a really busy time, you pull them out on a random Tuesday too, and you give yourself permission, because it does not mean that you are like it does it is we don't want to make it about your identity. You
Yeah.
want to be
No,
We
I
want to
totally get
practice
it.
to be secure in who you are,
Right.
regardless of whether you're making your own chia balls.
Right.
you know
Right. I know. I totally agree. I appreciate your permission to do that. It's true.
Yes, you have permission even to order pizza once a
Yeah.
week, because I mean, think about it. So, I mean, and I have some crunchy friends, and and we can get like we get in our little worlds, and we get into we can get into extremes. Like I have a good friend who didn't want her kid to have a bunch of sugar, and she was homeschooling her child, and so she only gave her unsweetened chocolate, and this poor child thought chocolate was the most disgusting thing in the world. Eating this unsweetened chocolate,
So funny.
and now is obsessed with milk chocolate. So
Sure.
like if you don't like bring in a little bit of what's in the mainstream, you can get a
So
real
funny.
pendulum swing on the other side.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, we were at a community block party the other night, and pretty sure they all had like 4 bags of Doritos, like each. I was like, great, knock yourselves out.
They're like, what is this magic
Yes,
food?
what is
It's
this?
amazing.
Yes. It's precious.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Food is a priority. Cleanup. Are the kids helping with cleanup?
Yeah. Yeah. They've got their morning chore things that they do. My 9-year-old takes care of all our chickens and, the birds. They do all the bird feeds. So that's really helpful. And, we have like a once a day kind of clean the table, sweep under the table, all the dishes, all that kind of stuff. So, but, like I clean our house and bathrooms and like all that stuff. And that kind of I hate it. I do. I'm like, oh, who are these women who are like joyfully cleaning their house and modeling that for their kids? I'm like, it's just not me. But I think it's unnecessary. And my kids help with the bathrooms, but you just can't leave them with like a thing of Clorox, or I put Clorox in. I can't not do anything else other than the toilets. They have to be Clorox. I'm sorry. I'm natural in almost every other way except for that one. Can't do it.
That's hilarious.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So yeah, but if you hate it, I mean, there might be ways to kind of work around this. I mean, I don't know, for years we found somebody who we pay, and she just comes and cleans our 2 bathrooms every week. It's
Oh,
not a
wow.
lot of money. It
Yeah.
saves me so much like mental and emotional
Yeah.
energy to like not have to
Yeah.
do that and just know that
Yeah.
once a week it's going to be amazing. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be available for you in Vermont, but it might be worth it to kind of
Yeah.
ask around from friends like, hey, do you know anyone who's interested in, just a light one, bathroom cleaning job? At first we did it every other week, and then we were like,
Yeah.
we love you, please come every week.
Totally.
So that might be, I mean, when we think about our whatever resources we have and our well-being, if it's something you really hate and you can outsource it, there's a huge gain in well-being, and
Yeah.
then even attention for what you have, that what you want to give your attention to.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And we've had cleaners in the past, especially when we had so many little ones. And I think our strategy here with all the children was, for it to be a family thing that we're all, participating. And it's like, we're not going to have someone come do this for us. Like, this is what we do. But I am resonating with your encouragement a little bit more than I would have been, a few months
I mean, I
ago.
can
But
see that as an ideal.
yeah,
But
yeah,
when, when reality strikes and you're someone with so much zest for life and doing all those things, and that's something you hate,
yeah.
is that, maybe that trade-off is worth it.
It might just be worth it.
Okay.
Yep.
Food
I
is a
feel you.
priority. Cleaning the bathrooms is obviously not.
Not.
What's next after food?
I would say connecting with my kids is a priority, and in like just being available for them. So like my older two, we're in a space right now where they get on a book series, and then they're just like loving their afternoon time of reading, and I love that. And so being present for them whenever they're done with that, and just being like, yes, tell me about your book, what's going on, like, and that kind of conversation is really important to me. So just making sure there's those connection points throughout the day, times 5 though. So you know that's a priority for me, just to make sure that I have a listening ear to what's going on inside of their heads.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
that's
I
huge.
think
And
that's.
also just reading together. We read
Mm.
probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 nights out of the week. I'm reading to them before
Oh,
bed,
so nice.
picture books or whatever that is. We listen to a lot of Audible books, things like that. I would say that's a big priority to me.
Okay. So it's that connecting, there's that reading together. Um, Now, so that all that stuff kind of takes some time. Is there a time in your day where you don't have a job or a chore or an activity for you?
Well, if I want there to be. So, that, and I think that's what you just asked is the challenge, because really in the last 3 days, I have been making it a point to, when they're doing their reading time, to just sit and read as well on my own
Hmm.
in the, on the porch,
Ooh.
just rest. But it's like 3 days coming, like 3 days, no. But and the first time I did it and kind of sat down, my body felt in motion still.
Mm.
That like the doing and the being kind of moment where you're like, wow, my body is just in go mode. And so I'm sitting down, and I was literally like kind of actively letting myself let go of all of the movement and just kind of allowing my body to rest. But it was like such a wake up call for me. Like, okay, sit down. And I do have a practice of sitting. It starts my day, but then I don't sit the rest of the day. Does that make sense?
Mm. Hmm.
Once
Yeah.
I've sat and kind of done my, quiet time and my
You're like,
a little bit of
check.
reading, I'm done.
Done.
Yeah, it's like up the door,
Do,
Um
do, 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 do.
yeah, and it's really it's yeah, so the last few days I just have just been sitting while they're kind of having we have a rest time, in the afternoons. The days are so
Mm.
long. So I'm like, and they all appreciate it. They are all like ready for it too. Um, but I'm putting my feet
Okay,
up and
that
reading as well.
I like that you're doing that. And that could be a nice practice to kind of, because if you can practice at least, you start your day with that, which is amazing. And is probably helping you weather this intense time, of course, because,
Yeah.
but if you can practice that transition and just the awareness of where your body is and how that feeling of motion and all of those things, I mean, it might be nice to think about like, I wonder if it's possible. I wonder if it's possible to do more of the things with ease, to like do the activities and the chores, to have breakfast, but to do breakfast more slowly, you know,
Mm,
like kind of slow down the general pace. And I'm
mm,
curious, I'm wondering if you took a week and you slowed yourself down, like you started to like practice just being aware of when I'm sped up and
mm,
slowing myself down even in the midst of activity. I wonder if I'm curious if what you would still get done, right? Like would
mm,
you still get everything done if you weren't hustling?
mm.
What do you think? Do you think that might be possible
I
to
love
practice?
that
Does it sound
question.
crazy?
No, I love that question. And I water the garden in the mornings, and we have this pumpkin patch. I have to take the hose over to the pumpkin patch, and like I said, we're new at this, so we don't have all the things set up, and I'm watering. But I literally like was like, oh, this is a mindfulness time. And as the sun's like shining on my face, and I just kind of like, and so it was like almost a window into what you're talking about. I totally resonate with that. And I think that would be calming to my nervous system, maybe. Because I think this is what, as I'm processing with you, what I'm really articulating is my nervous system is constantly like on, even in my like precious times with my children or my quiet moments, like it's still activated because because I'm just doing. And so what I hear you saying is conscious awareness of the present moment and doing your activities with ease and kind of with a restful mode might actually help your system, but you still get stuff done. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, I totally get you. Like, we get into this rush mode, this go
Yeah.
mode. We don't feel like we don't have enough time. I used to, well, my kids went to school, but they went to school like right, like almost a block from my house.
Yeah.
And I would drop one of my kids sort off at school, and then I would literally run back to use the 3 hours with the
Yeah.
most efficiency that I could.
Totally.
And at some point I realized like I would run back and then I would be going and I'd go and do all these things. And at some point I realized that it was just getting me more hyped up and more anxious. And I started to practice mindful walking home. It's not a long walk. I actually didn't even add a lot of time on to do this mindful walking. But I started to walk slowly and breathe on my way home. And amazingly, I got back and I was more relaxed and I still got all the things done, but I just got them done with less frenetic energy.
Yeah. That's so good.
So I think it's possible. I mean, it's kind of like it's a big, almost spiritual practice, right? Like the whole Bhagavad Gita is about doing the work, doing our work, right? But letting go of the outcome. And it almost sounds like part of this is this, like showing up, doing the work, being present for the work, but not being present, not having your worth, your well-being, your everything tied to the outcome of this work or the efficiency of this work or whatever it is. Just letting showing up and being there for it be enough.
I really love that. I read something the other day that it was about this Indian woman who had 10 children. And she apparently in her old age had reached enlightenment. And they said, what was her secret? And she said, I stirred the rice mindfully.
Yes.
And I was like, that's it. That's all it takes. But that resonates so much with me. And I think you nailed it in when you talk about the result or like the outcome. Because then there's this, this when you don't feel like you're doing anything well, you have a sort of judgment about yourself or about what's going on, right? And when you're letting go of that judgment, you're detaching yourself from worth or from identity or from, any of those things. And that I don't think we realize how much that weighs on us or that, causes our system to be activated in a kind of subconscious way. But the letting go, the presence or the mindful, activity releases that, I think, probably.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I'll do it this week and I'll let you know. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you will. You'll have to let me know. Yeah. But yeah, and there's like a mantra that can help with this. This might be good for you to write down.
Yeah.
And I've used it different times. It's there's more than enough time for everything important. There's more than enough time for everything important. And I think that's so helpful because it's okay to not have enough time for everything because you're human. You're not
Yes.
like,
Right.
a Marvel character that can like Marvel homeschooling mom who can do all the things, right? Like you're just a normal human being.
Right.
And but you can, so some things you may not be able to do everything constantly all the time. Like you may miss the chia ball snacks, but you if it's important, there's more than enough time for it. And
Yeah.
in your priorities, being with your kids and connecting, that's more important than making everything you eat organic or
Mhm.
etc. Right?
From scratch. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, from
Absolutely
scratch.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then if we zoom out to like the big picture, you know, you were saying you want to do everything. You want to paint, you want to write. What else was there that you wanted to do?
I
I
love
love
to
that was like
read,
not reading. Okay,
garden.
reading. Yeah. Reading you can do like somewhat with your kids a little, which you've
Yeah.
said. That's cool. Um, Painting, maybe, writing, maybe. I mean, so what I guess might be helpful to think about like the larger season of your life. So one thing I'm realizing now that my kids are 12 and 15 is that they've got a lot of stuff going on. Like they're my 15-year-old now has a job. She's lifeguarding. She's off doing this. Like she walks to the pool and lifeguards, and Sora goes off to the barn. I have like hours, so
Mhm.
I like now I do I last year I learned took some sailing lessons on the
Oh
Delaware
my
River, and
God.
then I am now doing Scottish country dancing,
That's
which
awesome.
I'm not, like obsessed with, which is so funny. It's really fun, you guys.
That's
Um,
amazing.
but anyway, just to say, like, there's gonna be a season of your life. You're a young person where your kids who are going to be 5 in 10 years, they're going to be 15,
Mhm.
and you're not going to be like doddering around ready to die then, like you know
I'll be 50, Hunter. 50.
oh
Yeah, I'll
my
be so
gosh.
young. I'll be so young. Hmm.
But anyway, it might be helpful to think about, I guess, to kind of pace yourself as in some ways, like you're not going to run out of time to do all the things. Like there's more than enough time for everything important, even in the span of time, if you don't have enough time now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, in this new awareness of like taking care of me, um, and kind of like realizing these passions are still there. These,
Yay.
all these things are like not gone. They were just dormant, they're here. Now I have a little bit of space each day. So I think maybe what I hear you saying is like tempering that a little bit and still recognizing the season, um, not feeling like if I'm not getting to those things, I'm neglecting something or neglecting, myself in some way, but like just kind of taking it in stride. Because I think I do.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No.
I was going to say, well, yeah, like there's a middle path here, right? Because I want you to hold on to the things that spark joy in your
Right.
soul,
Yeah.
that are about you and not being mom,
Right.
right? And being that,
Absolutely.
that whole thing. I want you to hold on to those things,
Yep.
but maybe not like everything all at once.
That's how I do it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I know. Like we had 5 kids in 4 years. Like this is just what we do, right? We do it all in one time. No, but I really appreciated that encouragement. And I totally hear you on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So for the things that spark your soul that are for you, just for you, what is it that is the most important for you in that category right now? What is a priority?
Conversations with other moms. That's like that is my favorite place to be, talking with other women about anything. Like just chatting. I'm so social. So I think that's where I'm like filled up when I have a time where I'm out with other moms or, doing a coaching session with somebody or something like that. I feel this sense of like filled. Then I'm home and there's not a care in the world. My husband's like, do more of that. So yeah, that's a big win for me.
Okay, so do you have that in your life at a regular basis?
Yes and no. So, I did just host a little mindful mama group, for some of the ladies in my area. And that just ended last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago. So, that was really life-giving to me. And then I'm really intentional about scheduling play dates and with families and mamas that I really connect with. And so like-minded families, and we have a really good time. And so, last week we were hiking up to a waterfall with another family, two other moms, and like that's like a win for everybody. We're all moving, we're having a good time with friends, and it's great mom conversation. So I'm just, intentional about having one or two of those a week. That always kind of fills up my cup. Yeah.
Okay, good. That sounds great. Yeah, it's great to have those things on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, yeah, especially when life kind of gets crazy, just to, even, I mean, you're homeschooler, so you probably want like a network of homeschooler people, right? Like, and have those people. And if you can have a regular, like every Sunday we hike, or
Yeah.
every Thursday
It's Fridays
afternoon
for
we
us.
meet
Yeah.
here, and
Yeah.
yeah, whatever, and you
Yeah.
go hiking. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So you have
Yeah.
that in your life.
You do.
Okay. All right, cool. So back to what your husband said. What can you let go of in this season?
Ugh. I don't know. I've started writing again, and I think I had sent that to you in an email, and I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoy that. And that's a muscle I want to continue to exercise. Um, I sit down and play the piano because I want to model that for my kids, like, and they're playing and I want them to hear me and see me. And not that I'm a proficient piano player, but I kind of make up my own songs and do that kind of thing. So I think, I want to see them. I want them to see me reading. So I, carry a book around with me and, want that just to be a normal part of our culture. And so I'm having a hard time. Like, I have actually let go of painting this season. I painted just watercolors. I really would love to continue to grow in that. That's something I'm intentionally just dropping for now and not feeling any, even when I want to, or not pressure, but like desire. I'm like, it's okay. That's maybe a winter thing, for me. Um, so
What if I'm wondering, Kasii, what if like the afternoon rest time that your kids like so much, right? What if there's like, when you were, when your kids are little and you were nursing one child, like you had like a little basket, right? A box of
yeah.
things,
Okay. Yeah.
some to write for the older kid. What if
Yeah.
there were like a little Kasii basket that had like one of those, like just like mini, super easily accessible watercolor palettes,
Yeah.
those like little
Yeah.
travel palettes?
Uh-huh.
um you know your some writing, some music. Like what if that were some time where you intentionally slow down, you
Hmm.
remind yourself of your intention to slow down, and you read or you write, or you make that time there, carve out a little time there, even with the family.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea. I think that's really sweet. I when you were talking
And
about,
don't let chores interfere. You hold a boundary of chores, like where you say any chore that needs to be done can be left,
yeah,
even if I didn't marinate the chicken or whatever it is.
right. No, that's a real thing. No. No, I love that. I think yeah, I hear you saying is like setting up something for yourself causes the intentionality. Like it brings you, it gives intention to that being a sacred moment or a sacred space versus that, like, okay, kids are down for quiet time. And then I run the list of all the things I could be doing. And then I have to like really make the choice to sit and read. Like, but it's a hard choice. And what I hear you
Mm-hmm.
saying is like, there's no choice. There's just, this is what mommy does during this time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's more than enough time for everything important. It'll
Yeah.
all get done eventually,
I love it.
or not, and it wasn't that important. Right?
And everyone lives.
Yeah, and
Hopefully.
everyone lives.
Yeah. It's good.
Okay, so this is awesome. So I have two kind of assignments for you in this, from that I want to take you from this, which is I'm going to invite you to really take a week and slow down while you're doing and going and doing the chores and things, and see if you can try to be mindfully present. And maybe moving forward from that week, it may look like I'm going to really practice when I do the goats or do the garden to like walk slowly, feel the earth beneath my feet, breathe in, breathe out, connect with the earth, feel that solidity of the earth, and be mindfully present, right? And because we're not, you're allowed to be human. You don't have to be like Buddha mom like all the time, right? Like, but maybe you pick like one thing a day where you're like, I'm gonna really slow down with this, and then invite that like ease into the rest of the day, hopefully.
I love that.
And then in the afternoons, like have that basket for yourself, and just that's what you do. Like your kids have rest time. If you want them to have rest and ease in their life as adults, you have to model it, right? So
Agreed.
To know that
So
adults
powerful.
Aren't servants, right?
Yes.
Adults are allowed to relax and have ease and rest and enjoy their lives.
Yeah.
So you
That's
should
great.
Show them that every day.
Sure. I can do this. I love this. This is like resonating with my insides right now. Yes. Yeah, it's great.
Yay. Awesome. Okay, so what is your biggest takeaway from talking today?
I mean, I think everything you just said, what you said about modeling rest, oof, that hit me at the core, because that's how I parent. Like, I'm trying to model a way of life that I would hope for them to, understand in some way, and maybe reflect. And so, yeah, I think I heard you earlier talk about the Sabbath. You nailed that one. Or, a day of rest, or however you want to describe it or call it. I really liked that. And then modeling rest each day, but also choosing something in the morning. I can imagine myself walking out to the barn, and that moment. And I've had moments of mindfulness, but early on where I was like, oh, this is a good mindful time, but it hasn't been in a long time. I'm just like, get it done kind of thing. So I really appreciate the encouragement to have that space, maybe be a mindful time, and then having the afternoon be intentional about nourishing myself. Those are my takeaways. I'm like, I have a little basket of takeaways right now.
All right.
It's good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing this time with me. I've really enjoyed it. Kasii is amazing. You can find her in Vermont, I suppose. And so at some point in the future, she'll probably be a certified mindful parenting teacher up there too.
Yay.
So we're excited for that. Thank you, Kasii. Thanks so much.
Yes, and thank you for all your insight and wisdom and all that you do for our community. You're awesome.
Catch new episodes of the Mindful Mama podcast and other free resources, including the Mindful Mom Guide at mindfulmamamentor.com. You can listen to every back catalog episode, including interviews with Dr. Dan Siegel, Ianla Van Zant, Sharon Salzberg, and get meditations, join our private Facebook group, and more. Go to mindfulmamamentor.com now. I'll see you there.